Hello and welcome to Breakfast All Day. Hello from my backyard, and hello from Alonso's dining room somewhere around here, and hello from Christy's dining room. We are going to talk about Shirley, and since Christy is also kind of a, unhinged writer of scary stuff, she's going to describe what the movie's about.
Increasingly so, lately. But also brilliant, Matt.
Yes.
Oh, yes. No, you are brilliant, but you are totally hinged.
A literary jewel.
There are hinges there. So this is in this weird year that we are in. This is like a possible top 10 contender for me. This is from director Josephine Decker, who most recently did Madeline's Madeline, which was so beautiful and strange. And this is also beautiful and strange and has to do with some of the same themes about the fine line between creation and madness and putting yourself out there to the world, but also feeling kind of vulnerable and insecure about it, and about a mentor and a mentee between two different women of different ages. So Elisabeth Moss is Shirley Jackson, best known probably for writing The Lottery. And this takes place right after that story came out. It's around 1950, I would say. And it is from the perspective of this younger couple coming to stay with Shirley Jackson and her husband, a professor at Bennington College, played by Michael Stuhlbarg. Odessa Young and Logan Lerman are the younger couple. Logan Lerman plays this kind of young, aspiring professor who has come to be Michael Stuhlbarg's assistant at Bennington in the English department, but clearly has ambitions of his own. At the same time, Odessa Young's character, Rose, becomes fascinated with the complexity of Shirley Jackson. And there are definitely glimmers of Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf here early and often, in that you have these couples of two different generations, and there's like a toxic kind of stew brewing with all of them in terms of competitiveness and desire and ambition and aspiration. Yes, Alonso, I see you raising your hand.
I was going to say, it's like Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf if the younger couple moved in.
Yeah, they're supposed to.
And there's a pregnancy discussion too, right? I mean, that also adds to the Virginia Woolf part.
Yeah, and a lot of drinking.
So much.
a lot of really smart people like sniping at each other over their wine glasses. So it's got some similarities in that regard in the academic setting, of course. And it's about kind of the ephemeral and like subjective nature of creation, right? And it puts us into Shirley Jackson's head so often that we don't always know what is really happening. What is her imagination as far as coming up with the next story that she's working on, which will become Hangs a Man. And it's about her fascination with this young woman who disappeared from campus, and how increasingly the Odessa Young character becomes her muse and maybe more, but also becomes a physical manifestation of this young woman who disappeared. And it plays a lot of tricks on you. And if you're willing to just kind of go with that, it is so beautiful and weird and disturbing and immersive. And I was into it from the very, very beginning. I love the way it's shot. I love the prickly chemistry between Elisabeth Moss and Odessa Young, and how that turns into this kind of conspiratorial sisterhood. And maybe more, again, depending on your perspective, depending on who you trust here. I really, really dug it. I can see how it would be off-putting for a lot of people, men in particular. No offense to you guys.
It's not a traditional biopic in that it's actually based on a novel, and the Odessa Young and Logan Lerman characters are fictional. But at the same time, it's sort of like if somebody wanted to do a biopic of Shirley Jackson in the manner of a Shirley Jackson story, this is what you get, you know? And so it's not only about her process, but it's also about the sort of like, yeah, it's very unsettling, and it's very, you know, takes you to these kind of dark places. And there are times where you're like, is this a thing she's imagining for the book? Is this a flashback that the Odessa Young character is having? Is it neither or both? Are they blurring together? This is really bold storytelling. I've never seen any of Decker's previous films, and that's shame on me. I need to.
I figured you'd seen Madeline's Madeline. No,
I've been meaning to get to it, but I have not. But yeah, so I'm all about what she's doing here. I think it's very effective, and of course, so much of it is anchored in Elisabeth Moss, creating another sort of indelible portrait of an artist, and just another character who is like ferociously unlikable but still ferocious, and very much self-possessed. So yeah, I think this movie totally it's setting out to do a very specific thing, and it's absolutely doing it.
Matt?
Yeah, I like this movie a lot too. It does capture Shirley Jackson. It is based on the real life between Shirley and her husband Stanley, who, I don't know about, it wasn't necessarily clear that Jackson felt this way, but Stanley Hyman certainly felt that they had an open marriage.
I don't think she was okay with that.
Right. But he seems to be.
We talked about this.
Right. And Stuhlbarg's really good in this as, he's alternately charming and kind of fawning and then monstrous. And I really like the chemistry that they had. And again, the tone is, I thought this captured a tone similar to as if you were reading something like Haunting of Hill House, right? I mean, a lot of Jackson's work, most of it probably isn't overtly supernatural. It's more, there's a lot of like, well, that could just be a crazy person. Right? Like you've got a lot of unreliable narrators, which this movie does really well. Handles that things from Shirley's point of view, and Odessa Young's point of view, kind of goes back and forth and really serves to be unsettling and scary and off-putting in a really effective way. I thought all of the performances were terrific. And one of the things I think the movie, because of the time it's set, because the story is set right after The Lottery's been published, we look back, first of all, if you've never read The Lottery, go and read it. It's an amazing story, but also read up on it because it was published in the New Yorker, right? And they talk in the movie about how the New Yorker got more angry letters about that story than anything else they'd ever published. People were livid about that story. They just were so upset. And you catch Shirley, who already seems to have issues with going out at this point where like everybody's mad at her.
I was reminded of We Have Always Lived in the Castle, which is another one of her books.
Yeah.
That's also about this people who are afraid to go outside of the house, and actually there's I thought really well-made film of that came out last year that a lot of people missed. It is now streaming on Tubi if you haven't seen it.
Right.
I did not see that, but I know you said it was good.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I love this movie. It is. It's hard to classify this. But if you're in the mood for something weird that you got to kind of think about, it's a really smart movie, and it's something that I think you're going to be thinking about for a long time. So yeah, I really dug this, and I hope people check it out.
I read an interview. Good.
No. I don't know that I've seen Odessa Young before, but I was very impressed with her here. And I think
she was in Assassination Nation.
Right, but I don't remember her in
I think she was blonde in that.
Was she like one of the four main?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think she was blonde in that.
Well, she's made a lot more of an impression here, and I think that she's almost kind of like the secret weapon because, of course, that Moss and Stuhlbarg and even Lerman are going to be really good, but she is playing this really tricky role, and I think has to be on Moss's level and pulls it off, that's not easy to do.
Well, also she is the only one that really evolves of all of them, right? So, I mean, yes, Shirley does leave the house eventually, but all those apprehensions and all those insecurities and all of the volatility of her remains, right? And like the Michael Stuhlbarg character, her husband, he's always like the brilliant, arrogant cad, right? And Logan Lerman is always like the young and ambitious one. But Rosie, the Odessa Young character, actually evolves to be who she needs to be for each of them. And until she ultimately learns how to be herself for herself.
Yes.
Right. So she's the only one who actually changes. And yeah, there's a scene in the forest with her and Elisabeth Moss that is just kind of breathtaking because you don't know. It's tense, but kind of sexy too. And you don't know, and it's scary. You don't know where it's going to go. There are a lot of scenes between the two of them like that as their relationship evolves. I also really like the sound mix here because there's sort of a mixture of the score with like sound effects that kind of suggest a lack of connection to reality, but not in an overbearing way, more of like in a steadily unsettling way. And the costume design is great. It's like 1950 at Bennington College in Vermont. And it's, you know, you see what women's roles were supposed to be at that point, especially in a patriarchal setting like a university. And you have two really fascinating women who increasingly butt up against that, against the rules in which they're supposed to be trapped.
Yeah, I was kind of thinking this is the movie you could, as far as like, you know, queer filmmakers and 20th century academic repression like this, and Kinsey and Professor Marsden and the Wonder Women are all sort of a piece.
Yeah, although this movie does something I think a little bit different than Kinsey and Professor Marsden because because those two, at least, like it's a different type of sexuality they're exploring. This one, in regards to the schooling, the way the female students follow the professors around in the 50s at one point made me think of like some of the schoolroom, like the one or two schoolroom scenes that happen in the in Raiders of the Lost Ark, right? And so now I'm thinking like, man, what was going on at colleges in the 50s, in like the late 40s and early 50s?
Well,
that seems ripe for some whole scandalous television series or movie series.
That's where the term co-ed comes from. Like women going to higher institutions of higher education that were not women only was probably a relatively new phenomenon at that point. I don't have the dates in front of me, so I'm sure that was part of what was going on. But I think there are some scenes between Shirley and Rosie that are like electric in the way that they are like so kind of dancing around each other, and these like subtle touches that mean everything, you know. And
yet, are they real?
Exactly.
There's that too. Like what is in Shirley's mind and imagined and what's real.
This is certainly a different kind of narrative than either Kinsey or Professor Marsden. I mean, it's a lot more like inside the writer's head, whereas those are a little more sort of, you know, traditional narratives. But I don't know. I think they all scratch a certain itch.
I think you guys will dig Madeline's Madeline because it's so daring and so strange and really like pushes the boundaries of, again, like what's real and what's imagined, and like the giddy exhilaration of creating something. And it just takes, there's like long tracking shots. There's like a giant production number at the end of Madeline's Madeline that just, it comes out of nowhere. And it's like, oh my God, where did this come from? But it's thrilling. It's a very strange and like unsettling movie, but really cool.
Yeah. And I hear good things about Thou Wast Mild and Lovely and Butter on the Latch as well. So yeah, I have some catching up to do.
Okay. What's your number? I'm saying 9. I like this a lot.
I said 8. This is really terrific.
I say 8 as well.
Okay. 8.3 is our number.
Nice.
So that is streaming now. I want to say it's on Hulu.
It is on Hulu. Yeah. And I discovered when you watch a movie on Hulu and you have this whatever level, you don't have the ads in the middle. So that was a relief. I wasn't sure what I was in for when I watched it there.
You're like, wait, it keeps going. Wait.
I know. I'm used to the grate at this point where like there's constantly a pause. Anyway, yeah. So check this one out on Hulu, and thanks for watching us. Like this video, subscribe to our YouTube channel. Check us out on social media at BeFastAllDay on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. And please visit our Patreon page at patreon.com/BeFastAllDay. So we do TV recaps. Currently, we're talking about The Great on Hulu. And this week we'll be discussing the new ESPN 30 for 30 documentary Be Water about Bruce Lee, and lots of other fun stuff that's exclusive to our members. So do check that out. Thanks for watching, everybody. We'll see you next time.
Bye.